It's a whole lot easier to bid on comic book auctions than it is to win a comic book auction. Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up two sets of auction winnings that I won off of HipComic, one from Quality Comics and one from Infinity Comics. And what I have found is I have been participating in auctions much more frequently recently because everything is becoming more affordable, and even more so if you're able to participate in auctions and really focus in and hone in on specific auctions. For me, what that means are either keys or books that are important to me specifically and not necessarily a lot of filler. And in doing so, I've been losing a lot of auctions, getting outbid at the last second and so forth. But I think I'm still comfortable with that because I am prepping everything beforehand and I'm setting my boundaries and I'm setting my limits. But I'm really going through and I'm trying to find specific books and being far more selective. And it's an interesting thing that is happening to me where I'm almost becoming more interested and more excited about winning fewer books. And we can get into certainly the obvious topic just around storage, or would you rather have one grail or 100 random comics? And I think most people would rather have singular books that are far more important to them instead of just a bunch of random filler. Recently, I was outbid on two, again, borderline grail. I really don't like to use the word grail because I feel like it's probably reserved for maybe a very select couple of dozen comic books that are super famous and always selling. They're just desirable keys, high-end keys, or just keys that I think are important to a character's storyline. I was outbid on the first appearance of Black Cat and Amazing Spider-Man 194, but what I found was I was very actively participating in the auction, and I was bidding more, and I was already thinking, well, if I win, I'm going to justify the purchase, and I might send it off for professional cleaning and pressing before I send it off to CGC, and I was kind of thinking about winning the book before I'd actually won, and I ended up losing the book. But it was an interesting lesson and experience where I felt more nervous, more anxious, more excited around specific books and winning those specific books than winning 30 or 40 books. And honestly, that's how I used to be, and I still am to some degree, where it's more fun, I think, to get a large box and have it filled with a number of comic books. And I think it's really great as you are growing your collection and you're wanting to round out certain titles, or maybe you're just sort of blanketing your investment in comic books and just trying to gather as many books as possible. There's lots of different reasons or strategies. Maybe you're like me and you're a little bit of a comic book hoarder. But what I'm really trying to move towards is being more focused, more precise, and when I participate in auctions, still sticking to my methods and sticking to those boundaries and those essentially what I mean is sticking to a max bid and not going over and not getting emotional about it. In these two sets of auction winnings, what I ended up doing, I think, is picking books that I like, but also spending a little bit more on fewer books and just running almost a social experiment with myself, where my theory is I have been more accustomed and more interested in the quantity because I feel like it gives me a better chance to maybe find an undervalued book. But over time, what that has done is it has certainly added a level of inventory or collection management that is not always the most fun thing to do. I mean, one of the worst experiences that I have as a comic book collector is when I'm taking out my short box to put comics away and it's completely filled. It's completely stuffed. I cannot put another book in there. And I think, okay, well, let me go to the next short box in order. For me, it's alphabetized by publisher and then by title. And then I go to the next short box and it too is just filled where the edges are starting to expand because it's just filled to the max. And then I realized, okay, I've got to get a short box kind of between these two, figure it out, resort them, relabel them, and relabel the bins and all of that. And it's much nicer when you go to a bin that's like maybe 75% full and you can put your comic books away. But what was happening is I would run into the scenario where I would have two bins that were kind of maxed out, but I've got like 40 books to put away between the two bins. So I'll get a new bin and put that together, and I use the BCW hard plastic bins. So I go through and I put it together, and then I'm sitting it between the two, and then I fill them, and then all three are about maybe 75 to 80% full, and then maybe a week later, it just so happens that I have some more books around those titles, that letter in the alphabet to put away, and now I'm maxing them out again. And it's kind of like a, hey, you may have a problem, you may have too many books, yes, but there's part of me that's like very fortunate that I have the comic books, but also it does become a little bit of a burden to have that many books. And then when you go through, and as I'm moving books from one bin to another, I'm like, what are these books, and why did I buy them, or why? Oh, that's right, I needed them as part of this run, or I speculated on something 2 years ago and it didn't pan out, but I feel like maybe the spec will come back. There's lots of reasons why I can never get rid of books, but I think that what I am finding is being more precise and more tactical with the types of books that I'm acquiring. And what I have found is that I am more maybe emotionally stable or emotionally positive, let's just say, if I am taking like that Fantastic Four 244 book, that moment where I put that in the Fantastic Four short box in the middle of my John Byrne run, and then I was able to count the numbers and see 244, fill in everything chronologically in order. I was very, very happy. Way more happier than I found myself to feel like after I had put 30 or 40 or 50 books away across a few bins. It really felt more fulfilling and more satisfying. So let's take a look at these two sets of auction winnings that I got from Quality Comics and see if these comics are examples of maybe what my strategy is now going forward, where I'm trying to not focus on a lot of filler and really look more for a lot of solid value pieces that I think will hold their value more in the long run for the significance of the book itself, instead of the book being in the middle of a significant run. All right, here are the two shipments, both routed, I guess, through HipComic, but specifically from the two sellers, Infinity Comics and Quality Comics. And I'm going to go ahead and just unbox both of these and then go through the two sets of auction winnings to show you which books I won at auction. All right, the two sets of auction winnings have been unpacked, and the first one I'm going to go through is the one from Infinity Comics. And this one, I ended up targeting issues of Sandman. And what I ended up winning is Sandman 16, and this is The Doll's House Part 7. And I continue to target these issues of Sandman, I would say maybe under issue 30 or under issue 25, because I feel like they're going to have significance here as Sandman Season 2 appears on Netflix, but also just they're being targeted because they're such great stories and great reads. The next book is Sandman number 18. This is the standalone issue titled A Dream of a Thousand Cats. And the other interesting piece is that this book, there's an error edition, and you only know if it's an error if you're looking at the first 3 panels where they're colored blue instead of yellow. So maybe I'll even open this one up and take a look and see. The error version is worth a lot more, but love this standalone issue, as this was already converted into kind of a bonus episode on Netflix. And then the last book here is Sandman number 22, and this is a Season of Mist number 1, which is also the first appearance of Mazikeen, the demon servant loyal to Lucifer, as well as the first appearance of Daniel Hall, who later becomes the second Dream. So really cool Sandman books. I'm trying to fill out the Sandman run, again, targeting those early issues of Sandman, and always on the hunt for that Dream of a Thousand Cats book to see if I get lucky enough to get the error version. And then the last book was a book that I spent a little bit more on, and this is Wonder Woman number 184. And I love this cover by Adam Hughes, and it is super cool because it's distressed. So a lot of the perceived, I think, damage to the book in the title, around the trade, and just around the book in general, that's all part of the art. And you've got the Wonder Womans from different generations, very surprised to see each other. Great Adam Hughes cover art. And this book was listed as I think it was a very fine. And my gamble here was that the person that was grading it maybe got confused and saw some of the distressing, or maybe found it difficult to grade. And what I'm noticing here is right around the top, as I move it in the light, you'll see that there is some rippling up and down the top and the edge here that would need to be pressed out. So I think that that's where the grade came into play. But I think that with a solid, even a quick press on this book, I think it probably gets moved up closer into maybe the near mint minus category. But I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to get the Adam Hughes cover for Wonder Woman 184. And I think what I'd like to do before I move on to the quality comics is just pop open the Sandman 18 and check to see if it is in fact the error edition. All right, so I'm looking for the first few panels, and it is not. They are appropriately colored in yellow, as you can see. So not the error edition, but while we have it out, some corner softening right up in there that probably moves it off of a 9/8 candidate, a couple of minor finger bends. So it would need a press, but it looks to be in pretty good shape on the front. On the back, you can really see that corner coming through here that is going to need some help or some CPR attention right in there. That's unfortunate. And let's see what else. Yeah, it is probably going to max out around an 8.5, maybe a 9.0. There's a little bit of a scratch on the back, so probably end up being a VF or a VF plus. But I still think that for the price that I paid, and I'll show you at the end what I paid for these books and compare it to fair market values, but I feel like what I paid for the book, it was pretty reasonable, and it was worth a gamble to try and get the error edition, which didn't work out in this case, but still a book that I target for reasons because it's a great standalone story, but also because you have that additional potential of somebody maybe missing the fact that it was the error copy. All right, let's take a look at the books that I won from Quality Comics next. And the first book is Avengers 160. The significance of this book is that the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver join the Avengers, or I guess rejoin the Avengers. Great pickup from 1977, Avengers 160. Next is Captain America number 191, where we have the Trial of the Falcon, along with a Stiltman appearance. Great 25-cent cover Marvel book. Captain America and the Falcon, Captain America 191, 25-cent cover. Next is Venom number 7. This is the first cameo appearance of Dylan Brock. He makes his first full in Venom 9. And what I just noticed is that they sent me the wrong book. I bid on the Secret Tongue variant, and this is not it. So I'm going to have to contact them and let them know that they sent me the wrong book. So that's too bad. I was bidding on this one particularly because I wanted it's a 1 in 10 secret variant, and I thought I got it at a pretty good deal. Even the photo had the tongue out and everything, so I'll have to contact them and see what happened there. And then the last book here is Captain Marvel number 12. I see these pop up on HipComic, especially from Quality Comics, quite often. Great Silver Age Marvel books that are not as popular or as desirable as others, and so I can often get these in sort of at least a minimum of a mid-grade to an upper mid-grade for a reasonable price. Again, targeting these types of books, thinking that they'll be able to hold their value in high grade. Not that this one is in specifically high grade, as it does have some color-breaking spine ticks and so forth. So this will probably end up being somewhere between a 6.0 and maybe a 7 or a 7.5. But still, I think for the price that I paid, and what I end up doing is just finding a lot of these books, and I'll throw bids up early and then just cross my fingers and hope that everything that sits at my max bid or just slightly under my max bid hits, and so I don't have to maybe stress around bidding on all of these auctions. But let's take a look and see what my final bids were for each of these books, and then I'm going to compare those final bids against fair market value to see if I added any value to my collection if I were to keep these books raw, and then if I were to send them in for professional grading, do they have any additional value or potential value that I can add to my collection? So let's take a look at those values. All right, so here are the two sets of auction winnings that I won off of the HipComic platform. The first from Infinity Comics and the second from Quality Comics, a day apart. Infinity from 6/3/2023 and Quality from 6/4/2023. What I noticed is I've been actually calculating the total cost of the book incorrectly this whole time when there is tax. What I had been doing is taking the total taxed amount of the order and distributing that tax across the number of books in the order. And obviously that is not fair because for, let's say, the Sandman 16, I end up adding additional cost to that book based on a percentage, but that's really, it's the percentage of the whole order and not the book itself. So I've corrected that here, and what I've done is I've modified column H, which I used as a discount percentage. So if I'm looking at a mile high 50 or 60% off discount, I'll put that here so I can see what was the original price, then calculate my discount, and then show me what I actually paid. So what I've done here is I've put a negative 9.5% tax rate in here so that I can more fairly distribute the tax across the book. So for Infinity, I paid $91.57 for the order, and then I've summarized my total cost here in column Z, where the sum matches the invoice, so I can see the true total cost of each book being, I think, fairly and accurately calculated here, more so than across the entire order. None of that really matters. It's just, I think, for orders like this, or auction winnings from one seller, I should say, and you've got a book like Wonder Woman 184 that I purchased at $61, that was the final bid. There's more tax on that book where you can see the total cost, which includes shipping. Now, shipping I've distributed evenly, divided by 4, but it's $68.61 to acquire Wonder Woman 184, and the fair market value, according to cover price, is actually $80. So what I do here in column AA is determine from a raw book perspective, have I added any value by subtracting the cover price fair market value, which for this book is listed at $80, minus the total cost to arrive at the raw value, and then a summarized total raw value out of $71.43 for these 4 books. Sandman 22 I won for $6.66. Not a coincidental final bid. Sometimes I'll do that with maybe horror books or other monster books or things like that. Tomb of Dracula, a lot of times I'll just go in and put a $6.66 bid. This one ended up working out in this case. It has a fair market value currently provided by cover price at $39 for Sandman 22 for a nice $29.90 value add. Now for this order, if all of these books were near mint, which that's not the case because some of them were listed as a VF or even a fine VF. Wonder Woman 184 was a fine VF. Sandman 16 was a VF plus. Sandman 18 VF near mint, and then VF minus for Sandman 22. So I don't expect them all to be 9.4s, but if I did, then I would be expecting a graded value potential add of $232.53. That includes sending in Wonder Woman 184 and Sandman 16 when it's a known loss. So I have all of these calculations built in. So if I did think these were 9.4s, these would not be candidates for grading. So it's kind of pointless here to add the negative value books. But the thought here is if I were to take all of the books and maybe blindly send them off to a presser or blindly send them into CGC directly, you know, are we ballparking 9.4 here? And that's what I would expect to receive in terms of value, just to reinforce the point that it's not great to just buy books at auction, whether you're looking at the scan or looking at the grade and blindly sending them off for grading, assuming you're going to get that grade. Now, the ceiling or the ultimate potential for these, if I were to maybe get them at least pressed, could they press up into a 9.8? I don't think so. But what I like to do is target books that have a built-in 9.8 value, because what will end up happening is as the 9.8 value becomes unattainable or unreachable over time, people will seek lesser grades. So I like to target books that have a high 9.8 value potential. Sandman 16 only at $77 in a CGC 9.8, but the rest of the books, including Sandman 18, over $1,200 in a 9.8 for that book. A little hard to believe. I did look at the numbers beforehand, and yes, there are some really high sales of this book. So pretty outrageous and incredible. I don't believe that to be valid. To me, a 9.8, that's probably a solid, maybe $125 9.8 in my estimation if I were assigning a value, but clearly the market says otherwise. Sandman 22, the first appearance of Daniel, the second dream, at almost 150 in a 9.8. And Wonder Woman 184 from 2002, that Adam Hughes cover at 182.33 in a 9.8. Now, I don't believe these books would be a 9.8, so I'm just going to clear out those values and put in my actual grades later. Let's do the same with the Quality Comics order, where we've got Avengers 160. My final bid was $3.75, and it is a total cost of $5.31 because I'm taking the $6.25 shipping and distributed across these four books. Captain America 191 is a nice $16.19 value add. My final bid was $2.25 on a $20 fair market value raw book. Captain Marvel 12, I think the $100 fair market value is probably more towards the near mint conditioned copy. I feel like that book is probably, it's probably somewhere around a 6.0, but I won it for $8.50, which I thought was a pretty good deal for that book. So the value add is a little skewed there, but just to remain consistent, I'm using the cover price value. And then lastly, the Venom 7, I was duped by the 1 in 10 Secret Tongue. That one has a fair market value at $37. I won it for $16.05 at a total cost of $17.61. I will be reaching out and contacting them to ask them if I can swap that copy out because they sent me the wrong book. So this one is a little tough to say, oh, well, I added over $100 of value to my collection because the Captain Marvel value provided by cover prices I think is a little off, and obviously I didn't get the right book from Quality Comics, so there's that. And just for fun, I'll plug in the 9.4 values and the 9.8 so you can see them. 9.4s of these books are going to be pretty strong because they're a little bit older. 127 for Avengers 160, 73 for Captain America 191, and $194 for Captain Marvel 12, and that Venom 7 being from 2018 and a 9.4, only sitting at $17. But if I were to flip these to 9.8, then we'll see the ultimate ceiling and potential for this order, where there, after the adjusted value kicks in at 9.8, we've got Avengers 160 at 180, Captain America 191 at 182, and the Venom 7 1 in 10 at $106. No 9.8 sales for me to report on. 9.6 though, if we check that out, $336. Again, I thought it was worth a gamble to get it in the condition that it's in. It looks to be in a little bit worse shape than I had expected, but still pretty high value for a nice Silver Age book that has really nice value, strong value. That Captain Marvel first series has some nice sneaky value in those earlier issues. So a little bit of a mixed bag here. The Quality Comics order is a little rough. I think in general the conditions of the books look a little bit worse than I had thought, or at least saw when I was scanning the books and looking at the scans. And then obviously the Venom 7 1 in 10 not making its way into this order properly, so there'll have to be some figuring out. I've never had to maybe dispute an order through HipComic, so that'll be interesting to kind of see how that gets resolved. But as I said, I'm really trying to focus in. I like, this is a very manageable couple of orders, 8 comic books across 2 different sets of auction winnings. I'm very comfortable with that. I'm also comfortable with the price that I paid. Like looking at the Quality Comics numbers, it was a $36.80 order for those 4 books. So even though you can be focusing on keys or even maybe low-grade copies of some grails, and the values and the price of those can add up, I would rather spend $37 or $92 on these two different sets of 4 books because it's manageable. I can grade them. I can catalog them more quickly. And I don't know, the books just carry more weight in my collection. I believe that the more significant the book, the more value that it can retain in the long run, instead of either being low-grade filler or just a book having no significance whatsoever. I think that you could make the case that every comic book is significant, or really any comic book that you own is a key or special in some way. But from a value perspective, I have to have the market tell me this book is significant. It does have value. It has value today. And you are getting it at some sort of price break or deal that makes sense, yes, but also that it's able to carry some of this value going forward. And this is where I'm targeting older books, yes, and in the case of Captain Marvel 12, that may not have any significance from a character or story perspective, but it's significant because it's from 1969. Whereas the modern books that I picked up, Wonder Woman 184 and Venom #7, those are not filler. 184 being that Adam Hughes cover, and Venom 7 having to do with Dylan Brock, Eddie's son, a significant character in the Venom lore. Also a fantastic and memorable cover by Ryan Stegman there. I just wish it was the 1 in 10 tongue variant. So there you go. Let me know what you think about these auctions. Also, let me know, just from a video production perspective, if you like this setup a little bit better than my previous one. I kind of reversed the cameras and camera angles here a little bit just to kind of mix it up and add a little variety. And also, just as a friendly reminder, if you are interested in supporting me and this channel and like the content that I'm producing, please consider becoming a Moneyball Comics channel member. It's 99 cents a month. You can click join underneath this video. And if you do not see the join button, you're probably on an iOS device, in which case you can just go to my channel, youtube.com/moneyballcomics, and you can access my membership page from there and click join and look at the member perks. And I also do regular monthly giveaways on this channel as a thank you for being a channel member. Thank you for watching, happy collecting, and see you next time.